This video is going to go from a clean installation of CSI March 2021 to showing the full modifications I've made with automation buttons. After using the fader bank buttons, selecting the track will update the TCP in Reaper. In Global View, the faders on the controller are mirroring the track selection in the TCP, and vice versa. If I select different tracks with the mouse, that will update the controller. I'm going to select the base DI, which is being sent to a base bus. So when I press send, the fader that remains is the send to the base bus. Pressing Global View takes us out of the send zone back into the tracks and buses zone. Now the VU on the controller is showing track volumes. For this kind of behavior from the CSI, go to your Preferences, Control OSC Web, double-click Control Surface Integrator, highlight the home page, edit, and use these settings. Track control, tick both the boxes, OK that. I'm going to highlight the surfaces, and I'm going to edit the MIDI to show you this. I've got 8 faders, and the only thing that's 0 is the default for channel start position. When you're frequently modifying the zone file, it's handy to have a fast way of getting in and out of updating those preferences in Reaper. And thanks to the subscribers that pointed this one out. So we'll assign this to Enter on the MCU. Go to your action list, look for Surface, refresh all surfaces, right click on that, copy selected action command ID, and close that down. Then go to your zone file. There's the Enter key. It is assigned to show children of selected tracks. I use the tilde key for all the variations of looking at children tracks, so I won't need this. Leave the word Reaper, paste the action, and I'm going to add these inverted commas. It still works for me without the inverted commas, but we'll follow some protocol. Give it a name, and save that. And we can test it. It's quite hard to test in a blank, so I'll just choose another. You can see the faders refresh, and that's it. Refresh all surfaces on a button. Much faster than the way I was doing it, thanks. Now let's program maximum use out of the automation buttons. So I'm going to select a track, press send, and see what automation works as it stands. Okay, nothing on nothing. Nothing. We're going to program those in a second. The group button has been assigned to Latch Preview, which is a great feature. You can see the track parameter box turn blue. That signifies Latch Preview. But pressing it twice doesn't toggle me out of it, and I can't get out of that parameter selection with the other buttons either. What I'd like to do is, when I press Global View, switch to trim mode, so I'm not in any of the right modes, whether they were selected or not. Also, when I press send, I'd like that to be in either latch or touch mode. Then you won't need to access these automation menus with the mouse at all. If we look at what the Global View and Send buttons are programmed to do in the CSI file, in the zone file, this is telling the controller to show the sends for the selected track across the faders, and Global View takes it back to the home zone, which is tracks and buses. So we're going to add a couple of actions or custom actions under the name Send and Global View. Read, write, trim, touch, and latch. None of those worked. Group did work to set the track automation mode to Latch Preview. I want to set the automation mode to trim every time I press Global View, and take me out of any write mode I might be in. I'd also like to double up the Send button to switch to touch mode. Also on the Send button, I'd like to toggle the envelopes for that track open and closed. At the moment, I can see it on the controller. There's the base bus send on track 1. There's no visible envelope lane in the TCP, so toggle envelope send, toggle show volume send envelopes for selected tracks. Right click on that, copy selected action command ID, Open your zone file, and we're going to duplicate the word send. And keep it tidy. Reaper with a capital R, space, and then paste the action. The action's pretty self-descriptive, so we don't need to add a description. Save that. Press enter on the MCU to update the zone file. Now when I press send, the track send envelopes can be toggled visible and closed. When I go back to global view though, I've still got to put up with seeing these sends, so another thing I want to assign to global view is to hide the sends for the track. And I also want it to switch to trim read mode at the same time. So first things first, we'll look for hide envelope send, and we want to hide all send envelopes for selected tracks. So if we right click on that and go to copy selected action command ID, close that to the zone file. Similar to what I did with the word send in zone buttons, I'm going to select global view, leave the instruction that's there because that's required for the controller. Type global view, capital G, capital V and no spaces. I'm going to type Reaper with a capital R, space, and then paste the instruction. Make sure you save that. Press enter on the MCU to update the zone file. Now pressing global view also hides selected track envelopes. So send will show them or toggle them closed. So if I leave them open, press global view, it's going to hide them. As well as sending the base DI to the base bus, I'm also sending the base DI to 7 effects tracks. So when I press send, you can see that the first track is at 0 dB on the controller and the other 7 are at about -150. Yet, in the envelope lanes, they all look to be at 0. Nothing changes in the envelope lanes when I raise the volumes. There's a simple reason for this, and it'll become clear as we program the other automation buttons. At the moment, none of the automation buttons work except for the Latch Preview on the group button, and when I select that, all the faders do pop up to 0. Now the faders are affecting the send envelopes in the TCP. I want the group button to do more than just switch on Latch Preview, and I'm also going to try and assign save to save the adjustments to Latch Preview. I'm going to make a new action, new custom action for the Latch button. So these are the actions I'm using to make this custom action. Type these into the filter. When they appear in the left-hand box, drag them to the right. Make sure your right-hand box looks exactly the same as this, and make sure you name it. Don't need a hotkey for this, just right-click, copy selected action command ID, and just look down the list till you find Latch. Highlight over the instruction there, and we're going to type Reaper, capital R, space, and then insert the action. Couple of spaces, // and give it a name. Try and make sure to put some kind of detail in your description. This is going to set me to Latch mode, then it's going to zoom the envelope tracks. I'm going to save that. Press enter on the MCU to update the zone file. Go to Latch mode. Notice that the send envelopes track lanes magnify to fill the screen. Because this isn't a toggle, I've no way of coming back out of Latch by pressing the Latch button. Now let's program the global view button to also switch us to trim read mode. And do that like this. Open the action list. And search trim in the filter. And we're going to select set track automation mode to trim read. Right click that, copy selected action command ID. 2 places we want to assign this action. One is under trim obviously. So highlight and replace Reaper capital R, paste that. And also global view. So press return over the last one. Global view, capital G, capital view, one word. Go across Reaper with a capital R, space, and then paste the action. And I'll regret not giving these names. Save that. Press enter on the MCU to update the zone file. Trim now takes us out of latch mode. If I press send, and you can see all the envelopes, notice all the faders go down for the effects sends. So trim needs to be at 0 dB. Adjust it in your track send defaults in preferences. I'll show you in just a second how to set that. How I assign the sends to the base DI. I copy them from this track. This track is sending to each one of the EFX tracks at -150. So the trim is at -150. Now if you want to change that, go into your preferences, track send defaults, and make sure the send default gain is at 0. I'm going to set these to 0. When I've done that, I'm going to copy the sends from that track. Then I'm going to go to the bass track. I just need to delete the sends that are already there, so I've got a button for that. You'll find it in the action list. Then I'm going to paste the effect sends, and finally make sure that the track is sending to the bass bus. That comes in at 0. Now when I select the send button, all the faders remain at 0. That's in trim. So now when I go into either of the right modes, I can pull these faders down, but the trimmed output for each one of those is still at 0 dB. We're in trim automation mode at the moment. So let's switch that to latch and pull the effect send faders down, leaving the first one up, which is the bus send for the bass. Try bringing a couple in. The next automation button I'm going to assign is touch. So if you go into sends, touch at the moment doesn't work at all. Latch is fine. I also want to go directly into touch mode when I press send. Time to program something into the action list. Open the action list, go to new action, new custom action. And this is the action that you want to mimic. Same idea, type these actions into the filter and drag them from left to right. Don't forget to name this. Again, I only use this for the Mackie, so no hotkey needed. Right click, copy selected action command ID, find touch in this list. We're just going to overwrite that. Reaper with a capital R, space, and then paste the action. As I mentioned, I also want this to go into touch mode when I press the send button on the controller. So go up to send. There's a couple of things it's doing already. Just press return at the end of that one. Type another send. Same thing again, Reaper capital R, and then paste the action. I better at least make an effort with the name, so I'm just going to stick touch at the end of that. Save the file. Go back to Reaper. Return twice. That's uploaded. So when we go into global view and then to send, send automatically goes into touch mode. Global view turns all write modes off. Send back into touch mode. And can pull all the effect send faders down. Make sure the trims are at 0, they're fine. The next mode I want to cover is Latch Preview. In one of my previous videos, I show you how to program 1, 4, 8, 16 or whole project time selections from the edit cursor. We'll just use a 4-bar time selection. Now we're already in Latch Preview, so we can pull down these faders till we get the sound or balance that we like. Now we just need to program a button to save those volume adjustments on the EFX sends within the time selection. Open the action list and in the filter, search for Write Current Values for actively writing envelopes to time selection. Right-click, copy selected action command ID. Go straight to the zone file. I'm going to assign this to the button Save. So we'll overwrite the toggle learn mode, Reaper with a capital R, space, and there's the action pasted in. Definitely wise to give this a name, especially as it's just a 42013 number. So Latch Preview and Write Automation. Okay, I'm going to save that. Go back to Reaper. You could set these sections by arrangement or by bar length as I've done here, and just save changes to your effect sends as you go along. In the markers and regions video, I show that you can create 2 points at every either marker or region, and then you could go along those in sections with a hotkey and turn those up and down 1 dB, half a dB or 0.2 dB. Any envelope, and no ramp, no fade up to it. You can adjust that in the preferences too. I hope you've been able to get your automation working the same as this by copying me, and hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about how the automation modes work in CSI. Thanks for watching.